Hello and welcome to the Moose Hunt Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Fickett. Today's a solo episode. I'm sitting down at my house in Mid-Coast, Maine and have some moose chili in the crock pot. Figured I'd fire up the podcast and we could go over some information for applications and all that for the 2025 Maine Moose Lottery. I'm just going to give some tips and tricks, and all this information is directly right off the state of Maine website. We're going to go over stats and permit allocations and all that. Maybe help somebody get drawn for a permit this year. Maybe you'll just put in for points. We'll go down how the points are broken up, how non-residents can up their odds a little bit, and we're just going to roll right into it. All right. So, to apply for a Maine Moose permit, or to get a Maine Moose permit, I should say, that you can do that in 4 different ways. There's the chance drawing, the lottery, for residents, non-residents, and through the adaptive management zone, which is a whole extra thing that we're going to get into. You can also get one through a silent auction, which the deadline was already February 20, so you can't really do that this year, but you can do a silent auction every year for state tags. Then there's a controlled moose hunt for disabled veterans, which is a whole separate lottery for disabled vets. I believe, I want to say you have to be over 50%, but it might even you have to be 100% disabled through the VA. I don't quite know that number for sure. Or you can do outfitter lodge tags, but like the silent auction, those can get pricey as well. But for the right person, that might be good. I mean, you're probably looking at 20 to 30 grand through a reputable outfitter. But if it's less than that amount, I'd say you might want to be a little leery. Like, why are they charging so little just to try to sell the tag? But you never know. You could have the best hunt that you've ever been on. A lot of them do advertise on the Maine Moose hunting groups on Facebook that they have a lodge tag for sale and stuff. They'll also put it on their own website. So if you just Google, Maine Moose hunting outfitter or guides or whatever, it'll take you to their websites and it'll either say they have a lodge tag or whatever. You can just contact them and ask. So that's one route. So that's always something to look into if you just want a guaranteed tag instead of waiting for a lottery or whatever. But that's to each their own, essentially. So 90% of all the permits are within just 20 of the 29 of the wildlife management districts, or zones, as we call them. So 90% of them are given to residents. No more than 8% are given to non-residents, and no more than 2% are to the hunting lodges. So as you can see those numbers, as a non-resident, no more than 8% as a non-resident, your chances are pretty small, but there's ways to make your chances better. And so you can only apply online. It's through the state of Maine website, and the applications are due by May 15 at 11:59 p.m. They no longer accept paper applications. It's been like that for a few years now, I believe. So pretty much you're going to choose your zone, your wildlife management district. Basically, it's which district you'd be willing to accept a permit in. And if you'd accept a permit in another district, if your name is drawn, and if all your choices are filled, you can put up into 10 zones on your application. You can choose your season preferences. If you only want to hunt in a specific month, I will say this, if you only want peak rut activity, like you want that bull to come in grunting and raking, just thrashing everything under the sun, you probably should just only put in for September bull. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in October, because it can, especially if you can break his bubble. But I've seen personally, and then, talking with other people, we have a lot of clients that come in October and are pretty disappointed that there's not really any rut action going on anymore. And it's just that time of year, the rut's over, not always, but towards the end of the rut, they're back in their feed patterns and stuff. So it's just way different between September and October. Not saying it can't happen, but if your goal is to only go on a moose hunt with peak rut activity, then maybe you should select just September only. And that's in the application, that's a choice you can make. You can also choose if you would accept an antlerless permit or not. And I've been on my own antlerless hunt before, and obviously I've guided cow hunts, antlerless hunts. And if it is your goal, or in your mind you only want to hunt a bull, then you should just select that. We're going to go into other ways to do that as well. with swaps and whatnot. So we'll keep going. You can also, in Maine, you can have a sub-permittee, which is basically somebody that you select that can also be on the hunt with you. By that, I mean, they can carry a gun and they can shoot the moose as well. So that's actually a pretty cool thing that Maine does. And you can also designate an alternate sub-permittee. So say basically if your sub is unable to come, you also have an alternate, and you can swap back and forth between those within 30 days of the hunting season beginning. So, and I spoke about the adaptive management zone here a second ago. You can also choose whether or not you would like to participate in that in the adaptive unit hunt, which is basically in zone 4. They split part of zone 4 or wildlife management district into 2 different parts, a section of it. It does have its own type of requirements, and it is an antlerless only hunt, typically later in the year. So October, and I think there's one like the first week or 2 of November. But basically it's part of a 7-year study. They're trying to see if harvesting more cows will help lower the winter tick population. But you can read more into that whole study if you want to. You can select if you want to participate in it, and you can select if you don't want to. But if you really want to, then go for it. It's the last year they're going to do it, I believe. So another cool thing about Maine is if you are 65 and older, and you have built up at least 30 points in this system, you will automatically get a permit. So that's pretty cool. If you've been putting in for a while and you have 30 points and you're turning 65 this year, congratulations. So, all right, so let's get into eligibility requirements. So basically, you need to be able to get a hunting license, a Maine big game hunting license, but you do not need the hunting license to apply. You just have to have the hunting license by the time the season begins. So pretty much you only have to fill out the application, pay the application fee, and you're good. And if you don't get drawn, then you don't have to waste your money on a big game hunting license, which is cool. So your minimum age is 10, and that's to go on the hunt. To get a permit, you have to be at least 10 years of age the year of the hunt. Or I should say on opening day of the moose season, I should say. But you can start applying for points before the age of 10, which is exactly what I'm doing for my daughter. Last year I put her in for the first year for points, and she was 2 months old. So she's basically going to be building up points until she's 10. So that's going to up the odds for her to have one, which is pretty cool. And like most states, to get a big game hunting license, you have to take hunter safety. So basically anybody over the ages of 16 has to have hunter safety. And that just coincides with getting a big game hunting license, essentially. So if you have gotten a Maine moose permit in the past, there is a 3-year waiting period in order to be eligible to win another one. So basically, if you had one in the years of 2022, 2023, and 2024, you still can't get one this year. And that goes for me. I had one in 2022, so I can't even get one this year. But you can still put in for points every year. You can still put in for points. So, and those points are basically what helps you get your odds better for getting a permit. So, so now we're gonna get into some numbers, some of the permit allocations. This goes into like your percentages of chance of winning a permit. So this is based on the information of 2024. So the total applications that were received last year were 72,126. That is a lot of applications. And the total permits that were issued, like I said, were 4,105. So yeah, that's less than 10% chance. Wow. Good luck, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. May the odds forever be in your favor. So that out of those 4,105, there was 2,645 bull permits. And then, antlerless permits were the 1,460. That's for the cow hunts. That's including that adaptive management hunt. So now let's break it down into resident, non-resident. So non-residents, there was 25,412 applicants, and the permits that were issued were 393. So do those numbers. Resident lottery, obviously 46,714 applicants. There was 3,712 permits issued. So Basically, how does the chance drawing work? One of those 4 ways to get a permit. How does that chance drawing work? So the drawings are for resident, non-resident, and adaptive unit permits. They are all held separately. So as applicants' names are drawn, they are assigned to their highest choice of available zones until all permits are awarded. If your name is drawn and all your preferred zones are filled, you'll be assigned to a district as close as possible to your first choice, unless you said that you didn't want one of those zones, essentially, or you only wanted to hunt one zone. So for the zones with a September and October season, because not all zones have both September and October, some zones are only October. So for those zones that have September and October seasons, permittees will be assigned to the September season until all of the September permits are filled. And then subsequently it goes into October season, unless you, the permittee, has said that they only want to hunt 1 month. So that's up to you. Obviously, it's based on preference and availability. You'll also be issued either a bull only or an antlerless only tag. So it goes back into where on your application you can select you'll accept an antlerless or you only want a bull permit. So, and if you selected that you wanted to be in the adaptive unit hunt, that's at the end of everything. If your name wasn't drawn in the resident or non-resident permit allocations, you'll be entered into the adaptive unit hunt lottery, which then it will go in, to those names that selected that they'll be added into that. So Maine is actually pretty cheap for the application process. For a resident and non-resident, one chance is $15. That's the application fee. You're basically putting in for one chance to get in, and it adds 1 point or adds however many bonus points to your information that's saved. But residents can't buy extra chances. We only get that one that we put in for. Non-residents can buy extra chances to get their name put in, that many more times. But with buying the extra chances, they don't carry over every year. So you still only retain what you build up naturally from applying. So for an example, non-residents could buy 3 chances for $25, 6 chances for $35, 10 chances for $55. And you can also buy those, multiple packages of 10 chances. So for example, 50 chances, you'd purchase 5 of those, 10 chance blocks, essentially, for $275. So like I said, when more than one chance is purchased, it'll increase your point for the current season only. Doesn't carry over. Hunters who apply multiple years in a row without winning a permit can earn bonus points, and I'm going to go to that breakdown here in a second. And the points are non-transferable, which means you can't give them to somebody else, and they're accumulated as follows. So 0 to 5 years of putting in. So say this is your first year putting in, till the 5th year you've put in, you'll accrue 1 point a year. From 6 years to 10 years of putting in, you'll get 2 points per year. For 11 to 15 years of putting in, you'll get 3 points per year. For 16 and more years of putting in, you'll accrue 10 points a year. All right, now here it goes into the nitty gritty. Those bonus points are tracked by using your name and date of birth. So in order to receive the points, you have to enter the correct name and date of birth on your application. So the same name, same date of birth, year after year after year after year, you have to use the same. So basically the online application searches the database through IF&W, and it should display the points that you have accrued over time. And you can lose your points. So you will lose your points if you fail to apply or purchase points for any 2 years, 2 consecutive years. So if you forget 2 years in a row to apply, bye-bye points. So, but if you had missed a year prior to 2011, so which now is 14 years ago, you will have lost all your points too. It was 1 year prior to that. But now it's 2 consecutive years. If you miss 2 years of applying, all your points are gone. So all that hard work for nothing. And obviously you lose your points if you had a permit or you had declined it, so if you had been picked for a permit and then you declined it, you'll lose your points then too. Or if you were found that you aren't even legally able to possess a moose permit, then you lose your bonus points essentially. And like I said, you have to make sure you enter the correct name and date of birth on every application that you do so you can accrue those points. And if you don't, then you lost your points. So let's go into some kind of key strategies that might help you out, maybe up your chances a little bit to get picked this year. So basically there's 3 ways to maximize your chances on winning a permit in the lottery. And obviously the number one way is to choose your zones with the higher moose populations. Obviously that's going to correlate with the number of permits that are given in that zone. So I'll try to put up the chart here in the video. So basically higher permits most likely means higher moose populations. And then obviously the number 2 way to maximize your odds are keep applying every year. You'll build those bonus points. That's more chances your name's going to be thrown in the hat. And then obviously if you're a non-resident, you can buy more chances. You can buy more to get your name thrown in there more. So if you're a non-resident and you really wanted a permit, you could just buy a bunch of those blocks and up your odds. You never know. You can also take a chance on your application by just be willing to accept any permit, any zone. Obviously put your zones in order of the number of permits that are given for zones, and we'll go to that here in a second. But pretty much if you're willing to just take a chance, you can do that. Select you'll take any permit, bull or cow, or the adaptive unit hunt, and you can try to swap with someone later. We're going to swaps here in a second too, but there's no guarantee that somebody's going to swap with you. So if you're just throwing your name in the hat to get a moose permit, but you want a bull, but you're just saying you'll accept anything and plan on swapping later, just be okay with it. That might not happen. I know people that have been trying to swap permits before and nobody would do it. So if it's a chance you're willing to take, then take it. And I mean, even if you get a cow tag, go cow hunting. It's fun, and the meat is delicious. So I did some research this morning before we started this, so I went ahead and worked up all the zones, went through the charts and the harvest records and stuff. So pretty much I've taken the liberty and listed all the zones in order for the most moose permits to the least. So this is going to be a good baseline to go off of for you guys when you're applying for your permit. Some of you may only list one zone that you want to hunt. Maybe your camp's in one zone and you only want to hunt out of your camp. And then, others will only put 2 or 3 of them, and that's okay. Or you can, fill all 10 slots with zones that you want to hunt. So pretty much the order of the zones, I'm going to kind of ramble off numbers here, but pretty much the order of the zones for the highest permits to the least is 1, 2, 4, 5, 3, 8, 6, 7, 9, 10, 19, 11, 18, 14, 12, 27, 28, 13, 15, and 17. So that's all 20 zones that you can moose hunt in Maine. But like I said, you can only put 10 on your application. So, and that's for September bull, October bull, and any of the antlerless hunts. So I think I said earlier that not all zones have a September bull zone. So if you are a person that only wants that peak rut hunt, that wants that, that high action hunt, there is some zones that don't have September bulls, and those zones will only have October bulls and antlerless, and that would be 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 17. So those don't have a September season at all. So keep that in mind when you're filling out your application, and you might only want that peak rut hunt, So this is going to be the next list I'm going to read off is going to be the zones in order for September bull hunts. So that would be zone 1, zone 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 10, 19, 11, 18, 27, and 28. And that is in the order of number of bulls taken, success rate, essentially, the numbers I just read off. And a cool thing that Maine does is hunters that are drawn for a few of the zones are allowed to hunt another zone. So like say, if you get pulled for a zone 7 permit, you can hunt zone 13 as well. And vice versa, if you get pulled for a 13, you can hunt zone 7. 12 and 15, if you get pulled for 12 or 15, you can hunt either of those. If you get pulled for 14 or 17, you can hunt either of those. And if you get pulled for 27 or 28, you can hunt either of those. So now we're going to go into the success rate. So the success rate for a Maine moose hunt, I would say is better than almost any other hunt. I mean, 64% last year. The success rate for the state of Maine was 64%. That is crazy. And basically, there was zone 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12 were all over a 70% success rate. And with zones 5 and 11, they were 78%. And zone 12 had an 88% success rate last year. Crazy. So yeah, I mean, a statewide 64% success rate. If you get pulled for a permit, the odds are in your favor of making it happen. And I've been on hunts where people didn't, end up taking a moose, and a lot of it was because they passed. And I'm going to go into this. The state of Maine doesn't have antler or size restrictions, so pretty much how it's worded is if it's got hardened antlers, it's considered a bull. It's a legal bull to take. And if it doesn't have hardened antlers, then it is a legal antlerless moose to take. So with your cow tags and stuff like that. And so I think that's why the success rate is so high, is because pretty much people can shoot anything, and that does happen. A, because people want the meat, or B, it's the only time in their lives they might be drawn for a moose permit. And if they're happy with taking that animal and it's legal, then more power to them. Enjoy that meat. So like I said, the success is there if you are willing to put in the work and make it happen and have your own goals of either going home with a trophy or going home with some meat. It's completely up to you. So I think I spoke earlier on swapping permits, and I don't know of other states that do this. I did not Google that, but I know that Maine does. And like I said, it's a chance, but it's cool that it can happen. So pretty much there's some rules that go with it. You can only swap once. So only one swap is allowed, and both permits have to be paid for prior to doing the swap. So yeah, you pretty much you have to pay for your permit before you can even swap with somebody. Pretty much there's a couple websites that you can do the swaps on. You can also throw posts out in the Maine moose hunting Facebook pages being like, hey, looking for swap for zone 4 for zone 7 September bull or whatever. That was just an example. But you can do it on some websites as well, where you can list your permit for a swap, say what you want, and people can reach out to you, or you can reach out to other people. So one of those websites is moosepermit.com. It's the name of the site is Moose Permit Swap, but the website address is moosepermit.com. And then another one is Moose Swap, which is mooseswap.com, and that's actually put on by the Maine Professional Guides Association. So there's two avenues there. If you get drawn and you don't like the zone or the tag that you were given, you can try to swap it with somebody else, and you can pay to swap. Like if somebody's like, yeah, I'll do it for $1,000, you can do that, but you can't sell your permit. You can't be like, hey, I just got a moose permit, I'll sell it to you for $10,000. That doesn't work like that. You can swap your permit, but you can't sell it. So pretty much if you do get drawn, you're going to get notified by mail and email within a few weeks, or you can just look it up online the night of the drawing, which this year the lottery drawing is going to be June 21st, and that'll be in Farmington, Maine. We do it live. We do a live drawing, and then 6 p.m. that night. The results are live on the state of Maine website. But you'll also get a letter in the mail and an email. So, which, one of my clients last year found out he got a permit because he got a letter in the mail that said he got it. Like I said, you have to purchase your permit, and you have a certain amount of time to purchase it or you forfeit it. So make sure you do that. Make sure if you're applying for it, just, put a notification in your phone or whatever to go ahead and look at those results the night of the 21st. Or come to Farmington, Maine and watch it live. Hang out with us. We'll be there. So the cost of the permit, if you get drawn, like I said, the application fee was $15. Now you get drawn. The resident fee for a permit is only $52. So that's pretty cheap. And then non-residents only $5.85, which I think is pretty cheap compared to other states for other game. So, and then, like I said, you have to have a big game hunting license before you can start the hunt. And that's only $26 for residents and $115 for non-residents. So still pretty cheap for a non-resident hunting license. And just some rules to go through that the state of Maine has listed. And this goes into a sub-permittee and, permit holder who can shoot the moose. And essentially, the only people that can shoot the moose are the person with the permit holder, or the sub-permittee. Like I said, the sub-permittee can't carry a gun and shoot. And a lot of times, the sub-permittee is the one that should. It's a father-daughter team, and the daughter's the sub because the dad got the tag, and he lets her shoot the moose. Happens all the time. But the sub-permittee and the permit holder, must be together for the sub-permittee to shoot. It's not like, the permit holder can be in the truck and the sub-permittee can be the one out there hunting. It doesn't work like that. So like I said, you can change your sub-permittee. You just got to do it through IF&W, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and they'll let you do that. You can defer your permit if you need to for medical reasons, family members, military stuff. Like I said, you can't sell it. It's not for sale. You can swap it, but you can't sell it. And like I said, remember, swapping is allowed. It's just not a guarantee somebody's going to do it. So hopefully your name gets chosen in the lottery. The planning does start now. If you're applying, you might as well start planning as if you're going to win, and just keep that information for year after year after year after year. And then it's less you got to do when you actually do get drawn. And hopefully you do get drawn this year. Like I said, the planning starts before the lottery, because once the lottery happens, you only have 90 days until the first moose hunt starts, until the September bull season. So that's not that much time to plan. So basically, one thing I like to preach is, make sure you have an extraction plan, whether it's quartering, packing, or dragging it out. If you're going to be quartering and packing, IF&W has some great videos out there on quartering your moose and even getting the ovaries out of a cow. And then this is a huge one. If you plan on using a guide or an outfitter, call them immediately after the lottery, because if that guide or outfitter is worth anything, they're going to book up fast. And if you want to use them, then you got to be on it, because like I said, book up fast. And then if you're doing a DIY hunt, make sure you get your team picked out, who you're going to have with you. Because like I said, you only have 90 days, so some people might not have the vacation. So get that worked out and have everybody put in their time for work, and so that way you can have who you want with you there with you. Don't procrastinate. And obviously, same as with the guides and the outfitters. If you're doing a DIY hunt, but you want to have some lodging somewhere, stay at some sporting camps or something like that, call the lodging place as soon as you find out you got your permit to, preferably the day after the lottery or the day of the lottery, because they will book up quick too. And same as with the guides and the outfitters, if the place is worth anything, then they're going to be booked fast. And then, if you're doing a remote camp, take the time and, find campsites. And, if you do, make sure you have a plan A, B, C, D, E, do the whole alphabet. because those will fill up fast too, as you know, leading up to the hunt, whether it's, you know, the weekend before the hunt or a few days before the hunt. Don't plan on showing up, you know, on Saturday to set up for your hunt starting on Monday, and you might be blindsided and be like, oh no, the campsite I wanted to go to was full already. So if you are picked for a zone that's within, like, you know, the North Maine Woods, the organization North Maine Woods, you can go right on their website, northmainewoods.org, and they have interactive maps to look at the authorized campsites, which the authorized campsites, they usually come with like a gazebo and a picnic table and a fire ring. And some of them have room for you to park your camper and stuff like that. It's all listed there on the website. And they also list the fire permit campsites, which essentially, it's kind of like an unimproved campsite, and you need to have a fire permit essentially to have a fire there. But that's all right there on the website, northmainwoods.org. You can even export a file off there and upload it to Onyx, and have all the campsites on your Onyx and whatever. And then if you're not within the North Maine Woods, if you have a Maine Gazetteer and Atlas, you can purchase them right on Amazon, which is a good thing to have in your truck with you anyways. I think the latest version was 2023. And that will have all the state authorized campsites on there as well. So that's just so if you want to do like a remote camp style, use stuff like that. You're not supposed to just, you know, backcountry camp anywhere you want in the woods. A lot of people think you can. You're supposed to have landowner permission, and in a lot of these areas are, you know, like logging companies. And I doubt they're gonna give you permission to just, you know, pitch a tent at the end of a road. A lot of people do it anyways, and a lot of people get told to leave. So just do your homework beforehand. And this is a great time to do it between now and the lottery. And like I said, if you don't get chosen this year, you might next year. And look, your planning is already done. So like I said, all this information we just went through, I pulled off the State of Maine website. A lot of it I almost read verbatimly. And it's just, I wanted to get that information to you guys because I know the application's opening soon, and some of our listeners and watchers might not know that. And so now you can go look at that information for yourself. You can look at the charts for yourself, and you can, you know, choose what zones you want to go through. If you would like to hunt with us, you know, here at OMM Outfitters, we do operate out of zones 2, 3, 5, and 6. And if you get drawn for a different zone and still want to hunt with us, we can try and orchestrate a swap for you. But like I said, it's never guaranteed. But there is plenty of great guides and outfitters out there. But like I said, if they're worth a damn, they're going to book up quick. So yeah, one other thing, you know, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So with that, folks, good luck. Take care, and God bless.